Hi, thanks for joining me to talk about human behavior and decision making. My focus today is going to be on why we make the decisions we do, specifically those in the workplace. Have you ever stood on a chair to reach something even though you knew it wasn't sturdy? Or maybe you've chosen to take a shortcut at work to save time, being fully aware that there were risks? If you're into the blame game, you can point a finger at your very own brain and its natural tendency for laziness. If you've ever heard the phrase, first thought, best thought, then you understand how most of our decisions are made. Quickly, automatically, and without much active thinking involved. This is arguably the actual reason we continue to see so many workplace incidents in spite of the exhaustive list of health and safety tools, initiatives, and paperwork that we see on a daily basis. In 2002, psychologist Daniel Kahneman won the Nobel Prize for his groundbreaking work in human behavior and decision making. While our brain is not physically separated into two systems, Kahneman discovered that our brain has two operating systems that take charge of our decisions, and he termed them System 1 and System 2. System 1 is our fast-thinking brain. It provides us automatic thinking spurred from memory. As it's automatic, we have no control over it. It's involuntary. And when we make decisions using our fast-thinking brain, our decisions are essentially made for us based on experiential recall and emotion. System 2, or our slow-thinking brain, produces thought that is effortful and deliberate. It's slower because we have to exert control to consciously consider our decisions. Let's put this into perspective by engaging each system individually. Let me ask you, what is 2 plus 2? And before I'm done my sentence, your brain is screaming 4. You didn't have to think about it and actively make a decision. You just knew and instinctively answered. This is the fast-thinking brain in action. Now let me ask, what is the 6th word in the children's song, I'm a Little Teapot? And you're probably still working this out as I finish my much longer sentence because you had to take active control before you could decide on your answer. The answer is short, by the way, in case you didn't get there. 2 plus 2 came instinctively to you because it's basic math, something you do every day whether you recognize this or not. Unless you are actively singing I'm a Little Teapot on a regular basis, your slow-thinking brain had to take over to get you there. That's the beauty of the slow-thinking brain. It stops us from acting on impulse or instinct. You see, the problem we encounter is that we often believe we are operating from a conscious or deliberate place, the slow-thinking brain, when we actually are not. We believe that we are making decisions because we've thought them through, and they are the best decisions to make, when in fact, without much thought at all, our brain is making decisions for us based on our experiences, opinions, and emotions. The fact that you allow your fast-thinking brain to make your decisions for you doesn't mean you're a problem, it simply means you're human. Let's look at some workplace examples that might help solidify the concept. Consider each of these scenarios, each occurring when you're in a free-flow mode of cognitive or thinking ease, and your fast-thinking brain is leading the way. You're climbing onto your heavy equipment after completing your walk-around inspection. You've done it before, it's instinctive and impulsive. You have to access your equipment, so you automatically take action, no need to think about it. But today, you've got a heavy bag slung over your shoulder, and there is frost on the track or ladder rung. If you leave this action to your fast-thinking brain, you're likely to have trouble. Unfortunately, the experience is so familiar that you don't need to think about it. But in this case, the work environment is different, and without using your slow-thinking brain, this goes unrecognized. As another example, maybe you're drilling another core hole 8 hours into your shift. You've been doing this for years, more specifically here on site for days, and even more so repetitively for 8 hours. You move your drill to the next mark on fast-thinking autopilot. But this time, there's an equipment issue. The rod gets stuck. Even so, no biggie, sometimes the equipment gets stuck. Your fast-thinking brain assumes it's the same old cause, and so you instinctively react the same old way. And maybe on a much smaller scale. But your decisions find you in a Deepwater Horizon type of situation, simply because your brain worked on autopilot, when this was indeed a brand new situation. The same reasoning applies to so many normal occurrences we face in the workplace on a daily basis. Getting out of your truck, but there's a large rut or rock below the door, cutting another piece of rubber with your blade when it has a chip you didn't notice. Scenarios like these lead to multiple and often serious incidents on the worksite across the country on a daily basis. So how do we avoid this natural phenomenon? We must do something to engage our slow-thinking brain regularly throughout our shift and throughout our working career. Now, you're likely not going to appreciate the answer as to how we do this, but if you could try to entertain it until I explain why it's the answer, it might help. While these may seem like tiresome statements that you've become accustomed to hearing and maybe disregarding, the best way to engage our slow-thinking brain is to stop and think. Take 5, do a last-minute risk assessment. Yes, maybe they're overused, and maybe they're too heavily relied upon, and sure, it may feel like many of these practices have become more about demonstrating due diligence than about actually keeping workers safe. But the reality is, the stop and think process is grounded in the sciences of psychology and physiology. Processes like the stop and think force us to stop our automatic fast brain thinking and transition into slow brain, deliberate thought. So regardless of what you want to call it, we simply need to stop ourselves from allowing the fast-thinking brain to run the show. Because if we don't put in the effort, fast thinking wins every time and for every person. As humans, this is our lazy and natural operating system. The first step in making better decisions in the workplace is to stop and think. And while this process is a great start, I'd argue that alone it's not enough to cause real behavioral change. Slow thinking is great for allowing us to consider different alternatives or to stop us from making impulsive decisions or taking unnecessary risks, but only if we are working from a place of factual grounding. What I mean by this is if we are biased or closed-minded in our opinions, and these opinions happen to be wrong, we simply think more slowly through unhelpful information. So you may be wondering what more we can do. I'd like to propose that we stop and think, and then talk it out. And I'd like to propose that we do this without the need for additional paperwork or electronic devices. Let's just old school's brainstorm. While this might seem gross to younger generations who take comfort in communicating through technology, it's a game changer in terms of development. Interacting and talking with others as you work through your tasks will allow you the opportunity to have your automatic thoughts and perspectives challenged, and then either strengthened or changed. This allows us to consider new alternatives to old situations. But for this to be effective, it's up to you to want to do better, to know better, and to be better. If you ask a 9-year-old child whether it's a good idea to eat ice cream for breakfast, in an attempt to challenge your own opinion that it's a good idea to eat ice cream for breakfast, well, unfortunately, your auto thoughts will be strengthened, but your behaviors will remain stagnant and stunted. Sure, it takes work to get others involved, and arguably even more work to make yourself truly consider other people's opinions, especially when they don't align with your own. But if it's ease you're looking for, you can always rely on your fast-thinking brain. Of course, that brings you back to a place of making thoughtless decisions, potentially doing the same thing over and over and hoping for a different outcome. But if that's what you're into, carry on. If you're more into sane, safe, and healthy work lives, consider what changes you'll have to make each day to invite your slow-thinking brain to the party. And it's really an easy start. Stop, think, and talk. And believe it or not, the more you do this, the more your auto thoughts in the fast-thinking brain become grounded in reliable experience, knowledge, and emotion. So the more you can engage the slow-thinking brain, the more trustworthy your fast-thinking brain becomes in those times you forget to rein it in. Call me a hopeless dreamer, but that sounds like a cycle worth chasing. A positive cycle of behavioral growth, and it all starts with the choice to do better, know better, and be better. Luckily, that choice is yours. So choose wisely and think deliberately.